Okay, so buckle up, deep divers. We're about to take off on another deep dive, this time into the world of aviation.
Sounds exciting.
It is. We're going to unpack IATA's 2024 annual review. Now, I know what you might be thinking, annual reports, spreadsheets, not exactly a thrill ride. But trust me on this one, this report has some seriously interesting stuff, even if you're not an airline industry geek.
Yeah, you'd be surprised what you find in there. It really impacts everyone who travels.
Totally. Like, did you know that airlines lost a mind-boggling amount of money during the pandemic?
Oh, yeah, the numbers were staggering.
Over $200 billion with a B between 2020 and 2022. It was brutal. But then get this, in 2023, they managed to pull off a profit.
Quite a comeback story, right?
I got a rebound.
Mm.
$27.4 billion in profit. But here's the catch, and there's always a catch.
There always is.
Those profit margins are slim. I'm talking thinner than those airplane seat back pockets that we're always trying to cram our water bottles into.
I know those pockets well.
Only 3% profit margin. So, what gives? People are flying again, so why aren't airlines rolling in dough?
Well, it's a classic case of more passengers, more problems. Domestic travel, for example, it's not just recovered, it's booming. People
Yeah.
are flying domestically even more than they were before the pandemic.
Really? Wow. And what about international?
International is catching up quickly, which is great, but it all adds up to a lot of strain on the system.
So, more demand, but the industry can't quite keep up. What's the holdup?
A lot of it boils down to the global supply chain. See, airlines need new planes, not just to carry all these passengers, but also because modern planes are more fuel efficient.
Makes sense. Got to keep those fuel costs down.
Exactly. And of course, it's better for the environment too. But getting those new, more efficient planes, that's a challenge thanks to those ongoing supply chain issues we keep hearing about.
Yeah, those supply chain woes, they really seem to be affecting everything these days.
Yeah.
So airlines are stuck with some of those older, less fuel-efficient planes, which brings us to another big topic, sustainable aviation fuel, or SAF. It's supposed to be the eco-warrior fuel that cleans up Aviation's Act. But from what I've read, finding enough SAF to fill up a jumbo jet is about as likely as, I don't know, winning the lottery with a boarding pass.
It's tough, that's for sure. IATA estimates that a whopping 65% of the emissions reductions needed by 2050, that's going to have to come from SF. Right now, though, production is way behind. It makes up less than 0.5% of what airlines are actually using.
Whoa, less than 0.5%. That's tiny. So airlines are stuck between a rock and a hard place. They know they need to be more sustainable, but the greener option is about as rare as, well, a good in-flight meal.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that scarcity comes with a hefty price tag.
Oh, you bet. Last year, they spent an extra $756 million on SAF compared to traditional jet fuel.
Ouch. That's got to hurt. And ultimately, those costs, they trickle down to us, the passengers, don't they? I mean, I've definitely noticed those green taxes popping up on my tickets lately. But if SAF is so expensive and hard to come by, are those taxes actually making a difference? Is the money actually going towards greener skies?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the answer is, well, it's complicated. Some of those taxes, they're legit. They're being used for emissions-reducing projects like developing SAF or investing in cleaner technologies. But a lot of them, they're not quite as green as they seem.
Oh, what do you mean?
Well, instead of going towards environmental initiatives, they often end up in general government funds. So passengers are paying a premium for green, but that money isn't always going where it's supposed to.
So we're shelling out extra cash, and it's not even guaranteed to make our flights greener. That's infuriating.
Mm.
What's IATA's take on all of this? Are they doing anything to push back against these misleading green taxes?
Oh, they're definitely not staying silent. They're calling governments out, demanding more transparency and accountability. If they're going to charge these green taxes, they're saying, then the money needs to be used for its intended purpose, making aviation more sustainable. And it's not just the taxes either. It's the airports themselves. They're adding more and more charges, too.
Seriously. So on top of pricey fuel and those questionable green taxes, airports are increasing their fees too. My wallet is starting to feel as thin as those airplane blankets they hand out.
Yeah.
But hey, at least we can take comfort in knowing that all this money is contributing to a safer experience, right? Tell me we're at least getting safer skies for the price.
Well, you're in luck because 2023 was a record-breaking year for aviation safety in a good way.
Okay, give me the good news. I need something positive after all that.
For starters, there were 0 fatal accidents for any airlines that are IATA members.
Wow, 0. That's incredible.
And not just IATA members, but also no fatal accidents involving airlines registered with IATA's operational safety audit.
IATA's operational safety audit. What is that?
It's basically like a really, really thorough safety checkup for airlines. And airlines that pass this audit, they have a much better safety track record. Plus, 2023 had the lowest accident rate ever recorded. So, yeah, flying is safer than ever.
That's amazing to hear. But there's always room for improvement, right? No system is perfect.
Absolutely, there's always room to grow. While jet aircraft safety is excellent, turboprop safety needs more attention, and that's something IATA is actively addressing.
Turboprop safety.
Yeah, those smaller planes with propellers, not the big jets, they've got a slightly higher risk factor. But anyway, it's a good reminder that safety is an ongoing process.
Totally. Speaking of ongoing processes, let's talk about the future of flying. I'm talking about those futuristic airports you see in movies. Digital passports, biometric scanning, breezing through security with just your face as your ID. No more frantic passport fumbling and endless security lines. Can you imagine?
It sounds pretty great, doesn't it? And it's closer than you might think. That's the whole idea behind IATA's One ID initiative.
One ID. So like a universal digital passport.
Exactly. Think about how you can unlock your phone with your face or your fingerprint. That's the kind of seamless, secure experience they're aiming for with air travel.
Sign me up. So how does it work?
It's all about using digital identity and biometrics. Basically, your unique physical characteristics like your face or iris become your ID. And we're already seeing trials of this technology at some airports. It's only a matter of time before it becomes more widespread. But, and this is a big but, they're being very careful about privacy concerns.
Yeah, because as much as I hate digging for my passport at the airport, I do value my privacy. So what are they doing to make sure our data is protected?
Well, for starters, IATA has laid out some very clear principles about data privacy.
Like what? Give me the Cliffs Notes version.
Okay, the big one is that you own your data. It's your information, and you get to choose what you share and with whom.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's not like they're just going to be sharing my information with anyone who asks for it.
Exactly. And it's not just about who has access to the data, but also how much data is being shared.
So what are they sharing, and who are they sharing it with?
It's about minimizing the data that's being shared. So, for example, governments might need certain information for security purposes, but airlines wouldn't need all of that same data.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. So they're being selective about what they share and with whom. What about those of us who aren't quite ready to embrace the whole face as a boarding pass future? What if I prefer the old school method? Passports and all that.
No problem. You can opt out. Nobody's forcing anyone to use this technology if they're not comfortable with it. You can stick with the traditional methods.
That's good to know. It sounds like they're trying to strike a balance between making travel smoother and more secure without compromising passenger privacy. That's impressive, especially with everything else they've got going on.
It is a lot to juggle, and we've only just scratched the surface.
I know, right? There's so much more to unpack when it comes to the challenges and opportunities facing the aviation industry.
Exactly. And that's what makes this such a fascinating field. It's constantly evolving.
I'm ready to dive deeper whenever you are.
You know, when you finally make it through security and into the airport, you kind of breathe a sigh of relief.
Yes.
That's another area where IATA is really focused on trying to make things better for everybody.
Okay, because you think about all those terminals and those moving walkways and those overpriced coffee shops, they're not exactly known for being eco-friendly.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Some airports are really going above and beyond investing in renewable energy, making their operations more efficient.
Well, it's good to hear. But I imagine all of that comes at a cost.
It does. And unfortunately, those costs, they do trickle down. Passengers end up paying for them in the form of higher fares.
I figured as much. But it's not always as simple as just, tacking on a few extra bucks to a ticket.
Right. Sometimes these airports, they get a little carried away with these big, fancy infrastructure projects.
Okay, like what kind of projects?
Oh, you know those shiny new terminals?
I love those.
Yeah, they're impressive, but those projects are not always, aligned with what airlines actually need or what's even financially viable.
So who steps in to sort of be the voice of reason in those situations?
That's where IATA comes in.
Okay, so they're like the mediators between the airports with their grand plans and the airlines who have to actually, make it all work.
Exactly. They're pushing for a lot more collaboration before any of those bulldozers and construction crews show up.
Makes sense. Get everyone on the same page from the get-go.
Right. It's about making sure that those new terminals, those expansions, they're actually necessary, that they're cost-effective, and that they won't turn into these budget-busting nightmares for passengers and airlines.
Measure twice, cut once.
Mm-hmm.
It's good advice, whether you're building a house or a massive airport terminal.
Exactly. And speaking of making things work, we've talked a lot about, the airports and the airlines, but what about the people who are actually making this whole operation run?
The people on the ground,
Yeah,
the ones who are keeping everything moving.
exactly. What is IA doing to support them?
It's a good question. I mean, we often focus on the passenger experience, but those folks are the backbone of the industry.
They really are. And IATA knows that. They're deeply invested in supporting aviation workers, especially when it comes to things like training and safety.
Okay. What kind of initiatives are they working on?
One major focus is on attracting and retaining skilled workers, which is becoming increasingly difficult as the industry is facing a growing shortage of qualified pilots and maintenance technicians.
A shortage of pilots. And that sounds a little worrying.
It's a real concern. The demand for air travel is growing, but there aren't enough qualified people to fly and maintain the planes.
So how are they addressing that?
IATA's been working with training organizations and governments to try to develop programs that encourage more young people to consider careers in aviation.
That makes sense. You got to get them while they're young.
And it's not just about pilots. It's air traffic controllers, engineers, mechanics, the whole gamut.
I imagine it's a pretty exciting field to be a part of.
It really is. And they're also working to make the industry more attractive to a more diverse workforce because they recognize that diversity brings new perspectives.
It's great that they're prioritizing diversity in aviation.
It's essential for the future of the industry. Now, going back to safety for a moment, we talked about how those IOSC audits make flights safer, but I'm curious, what about the cargo side of things?
Oh, that's a good point. It's not just people flying around. We're shipping tons of stuff by air every single day.
You're right, air cargo is a huge part of the global economy. And just like with passenger flights, safety is paramount.
So they're keeping an eye on those Amazon Prime packages, too.
You could say that. It's a lot more than just online shopping, though. We're talking about essential medical supplies, perishable goods, even live animals.
Oh, wow. I hadn't thought about that. It's easy to forget how much our world relies on air cargo.
And let's not forget about those lithium batteries.
Oh, yeah, those tiny powerhouses. They can also be a bit of a fire hazard.
Exactly. They power practically everything these days, but they need to be handled very carefully. That's why IATA has a special program to certify companies that handle those batteries.
Oh, really? What's it called?
It's called CEIV lithium batteries. It makes sure those companies are following strict safety protocols to, prevent any incidents.
Incidents. That's one way to put it. I'm definitely feeling a lot better about my next flight, knowing that someone's looking out for those lithium batteries in the cargo hold.
Good to hear. But speaking of cargo, we talked earlier about how IATA is pushing for greener skies on the passenger side with FAF and all that. What about making cargo greener?
Yeah, shipping tons of stuff around the world can't be great for the environment.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Just like with passenger travel, SAF is a big part of the solution for making cargo greener.
So more sustainable fuel for both people and packages.
Exactly. More and more cargo carriers are starting to use it, and IATA is doing what it can to ramp up production.
Great. So what else are they doing to make cargo more sustainable, besides the fuel itself?
Well, they're developing tools to help companies involved in air cargo track and reduce their own carbon footprint.
Okay, so what does that look like in practice?
It's a pretty holistic approach. They're looking at everything from optimizing routes and using more fuel-efficient aircraft to improving ground operations and even just reducing waste.
So it's not just about what happens in the air. It's about the entire journey from start to finish.
Exactly. It's about making sure that every aspect of air cargo is as sustainable as it can be.
I'm sensing a theme here. IATA seems to be all about taking this big picture collaborative approach.
They're definitely big on collaboration. They get that everyone has a role to play in making aviation more sustainable.
It's not just about the environment, though, right? It's about the long-term economic viability of the industry.
Absolutely. You can't have one without the other.
Well said. Okay, so we've talked about sustainability, safety, but there's one more big piece of the puzzle we haven't gotten to yet. Security.
Ah, yes, security. The never-ending challenge.
It's a big one, and I imagine it's constantly evolving.
Yeah.
So how is IATA involved in all of that?
They're involved on multiple fronts. They're working to enhance security, but also make sure that airports don't turn into these impenetrable fortresses.
Okay, so how do they walk that fine line between keeping things secure, but also making sure that travel isn't a complete nightmare?
Well, one approach is advocating for a more risk-based approach to security measures.
Okay, risk-based approach. What does that mean exactly?
It basically means focusing security efforts on the areas that pose the greatest risk, instead of treating every single passenger and every single piece of luggage with the exact same level of scrutiny.
So instead of everyone going through the same rigorous screening process, they're using data and intelligence to identify potential threats and then tailoring security measures accordingly.
Exactly. It's about working smarter, not harder.
Makes sense. So how does that actually play out in the real world?
Well, one way they're doing this is by embracing technology.
Let me guess. More biometrics.
You got it. Remember those digital passports we were talking about earlier? They're not just about convenience. They also have the potential to enhance security.
Oh, right. Because if they can verify your identity using your face or your iris, then theoretically they don't need to worry as much about you trying to sneak something through security.
Precisely. It's about using technology to make security more targeted and more effective.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
But it also sounds a little, well, Big Brother-ish. Is IATA concerned about the privacy implications of all this technology?
Definitely. They're very aware of the potential downsides of using things like facial recognition, and they're advocating for strong privacy protections to be built into any new security measures.
Okay, so they're not just throwing technology at the problem without thinking through the potential consequences.
Right. It's about striking that balance. Leveraging technology to improve security, but not at the expense of people's privacy.
That's good to hear, because as cool as some of those technologies are, I don't want to live in a world where every move is tracked and monitored.
No one wants that.
You know, it's been really interesting to hear about all the different ways that IATA is involved in making aviation safer, more efficient, and more sustainable.
It's quite a lot to take in.
It is. And one thing that has really stood out to me is their emphasis on collaboration. They seem to understand that they can't do it alone.
Yeah, you're right. Whether it's working with governments on security policies or partnering with airports on sustainable development, IATA really seems to get that collaboration is key.
They're kind of like the glue that holds the whole aviation ecosystem together.
That's a good way to put it. They're constantly working to build partnerships and find common ground between all the different
And
stakeholders.
it sounds like they've had their work cut out for them lately.
Tell me about it. Between the pandemic recovery, the push for sustainability, the ever-evolving security landscape, it's been a wild ride for the aviation industry.
It makes you appreciate all the work that goes on behind the scenes, doesn't it?
Absolutely. All the planning and coordinating and problem solving that happens long before we ever step foot on a plane.
It's easy to forget about all of that when you're just focused on getting from point A to point B.
Exactly. But it's a huge undertaking, and it takes a lot of dedicated people to make it all happen seamlessly.
Speaking of making things seamless, I was really struck by IATA's commitment to making air travel inclusive for everyone.
Oh, absolutely. That's a huge priority for them.
So it's not just about getting from point A to point B, it's about making sure that everyone can enjoy the journey.
Exactly. And that means making sure that passengers with disabilities have a smooth and dignified travel experience.
So what are they doing to make that happen?
They're working with airlines and airports to improve accessibility at every step of the journey.
Okay, so give me some examples.
Sure. So that includes things like making sure that booking and boarding processes are accessible, improving baggage handling for passengers with disabilities, and providing assistance at the destination.
It sounds like they're really trying to think of everything.
They're also pushing for clear and consistent standards for accessible air travel globally.
That makes sense, because right now it can be a real mixed bag depending on where you're flying.
Exactly. So they want to make sure that passengers with disabilities have a positive and consistent experience no matter where they're traveling.
It's great that they're championing these important issues. It's a good reminder that air travel, for all of its challenges, has the power to connect people from all walks of life.
And it's not just about connecting people physically, but also culturally and economically.
That's a really good point.
Exactly.
Aviation plays such a vital role in fostering global understanding and driving economic growth.
It connects businesses, it facilitates trade, it allows people to experience different cultures and perspectives.
It's really quite a powerful force in our world,
Yeah.
and it's comforting to know that an organization like IATA is working so hard to make sure that it's a force for good.
I completely agree. And with that, I think we're approaching the end of our deep dive into the world of aviation.
But before we come in for a landing, I have one final question for you. What's the one big takeaway you want our listeners to carry with them as they head out into the world, perhaps even board a plane themselves?
That's a great question. I think the most important thing to remember is that Aviation is so much more than just getting from one place to another. It's this complex and fascinating ecosystem with far-reaching implications for our world.
Beautifully said.
Mhm.
And as we've seen from this deep dive into IATA's work, it's also an industry that's constantly evolving, constantly adapting to new challenges and embracing new opportunities.
Exactly. It's a dynamic and exciting field to be a part of, and I, for one, am excited to see what the future holds.
Me too. And on that note, let's bring this deep dive in for a smooth landing. As we start our descent on this deep dive into aviation, I have to say I'm feeling a little different about those metal birds that whisk us across the globe.
It's true. It's easy to forget how incredible it is that we can hop on a plane and be on another continent in a matter of hours.
It really is amazing when you think about it. And it's not just the planes themselves, it's the entire ecosystem that makes it all possible.
All the people, the technology, the regulations, the global cooperation.
Exactly. It's a massive and intricate web that IATA is working hard to support and shape.
And like any complex system, it comes with its own set of challenges and opportunities.
So as we look to the future of aviation, what are some of the big questions that are on the horizon?
Well, sustainability continues to be a major focus.
Of course,
Yeah.
we've talked about SAF and how important it is for reducing emissions, but actually scaling up production to meet those ambitious 2050 goals, that's a whole other story.
It is, and it's not just about making enough SAF, it's about making it affordable for airlines so those costs don't get passed on to passengers.
Right, because nobody wants to see those ticket prices go even higher.
Exactly. And then beyond the fuel itself, there's the whole issue of making airports themselves more environmentally friendly.
Which is a huge undertaking.
Massive. We're talking about everything from reducing their carbon footprint to managing waste to even just rethinking how we design and construct these gigantic transportation hubs.
It's like building a small city and then making sure that city is as green as possible.
Exactly. It's a huge challenge, but it's one that the industry is taking very seriously.
So greener planes, greener airports, a whole lot of greening needs to happen.
Absolutely. And it's not just about going green either. Technology is going to play a huge role in shaping the future of aviation.
Well, sure, we've talked about biometrics and those digital passports, but what else is on the horizon?
I'm talking about things like artificial intelligence, big data automation.
Okay, so those are already playing a role in other industries, but how are they being used in aviation?
In so many ways. Think about everything from optimizing flight routes and improving air traffic control to personalizing the passenger experience and even enhancing safety measures.
It's incredible how much technology is being used behind the scenes.
It's really impressive. And it's only going to become more prevalent in the years to come.
Which begs the question, as technology takes on a larger role, what happens to the human element of flying?
That's a question a lot of people are asking. And it's an important one. It's not about replacing humans with machines, but finding ways for them to work together effectively.
So a future where humans and technology are co-piloting, so to speak?
Exactly. For example, AI can help pilots make faster and more informed decisions, but ultimately it's still the pilot's judgment and experience that matters most.
Okay, so it's more about using technology to augment human capabilities, not replace them entirely.
Exactly. It's about finding that synergy between human and artificial intelligence.
Makes sense. Any other big trends we should keep an eye on?
Well, one thing that's clear is that the aviation industry is only going to become more globalized and interconnected.
Meaning,
We're already seeing airlines forming alliances, sharing resources, collaborating on new technologies. That trend is only going to accelerate.
which makes sense when you think about it. Air travel has always been about connecting the world.
Exactly. And as we look to the future, that spirit of collaboration is going to be more important than ever.
Whether it's tackling global challenges like climate change or working together to enhance safety and security, the future of aviation depends on a shared vision and a commitment to working together.
I couldn't agree more.
Well said. As we come in for a final approach on this deep dive, I have to say I'm amazed by the sheer scope of IATA's work. They're really tackling some of the biggest challenges facing our world today.
They are. And they're doing it with a focus on safety, sustainability, and innovation. It's an organization that's shaping the future of how we connect with each other and with the world around us.
It's been an incredible journey, taking a closer look at their work, and I think our listeners will come away with a much deeper appreciation for the complexity and wonder of air travel.
I hope so. The next time you're at the airport waiting to board a flight, take a moment to think about everything that went into getting you there. The people, the technology, the global cooperation. It's truly remarkable.
It really is. And on that note, let's bring this deep dive to a close. A huge thank you to our listeners for joining us on this journey into the world of aviation. Until next time, safe travels.
Thank you for joining us on this journey through the future of travel. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more insights and updates. Visit Tourism, Capturing the Scene of Knowledge, a comprehensive website delivering the latest travel trends and innovations. Accelerate your mastery of the tourism industry, all in one place. Navigate through a vast showcase of comprehensive business-oriented tourism content, 99% pure industry intelligence, and 1% academic, curated for discerning professionals. Why subscribe to Tourism? Capturing the Scene of Knowledge. Make informed decisions. Instantly access key reports and insights from top sources across the tourism industry. No research required. All in one place. Why split your attention? A single subscription gives you easy access to thousands of reports, videos, and infographics just as effortlessly as watching a 30-second ad. Save time with curated searches. Time is money. Let our subscription save you both by delivering valuable insights directly without the endless search. Until next time, happy travels.